It started the way all night shifts do. Quiet, uneventful, too still. I work security for an old corporate building downtown. You'd recognize it if I told you. The one with the green-lit spire that flickers during storms. Most tenants moved out a few years back. Now only one company remains on the third floor. Some data archival firm called Sycorax Solutions that nobody really visits. Their office always smells faintly of old wires and ozone, even when nobody's there. The building had 12 floors, but only 2 were occupied, the lobby where I worked and the third floor. My job was to monitor the cameras, do hourly patrols, and make sure no junkies or squatters wandered in. It was dull work, especially on the graveyard shift. You get used to the creaks and hums of an aging building. That night began like any other. Midnight rolled in, rain tapped the windows. I took a thermos of coffee and did my first round. The elevator groaned as it took me to each floor, its fluorescent lights flickering every time the doors opened to pitch-black corridors. I stopped on the third floor, as always. I hated that floor. Even though the office was dark and supposedly empty, there was always a sense of presence, like someone just stepped around the corner. The motion lights would flicker on a few seconds late, and they buzzed like dying flies. I'd walk the perimeter, check each locked door, and stare too long at the abstract paintings on the walls. Each one just a little off-center, but this time, something was different. When I stepped off the elevator, the lights didn't come on. I stood still for a moment, waiting. Nothing. Just the sound of rain ticking against the high windows at the far end of the hall. I fumbled with my flashlight and clicked it on. The beam danced against glass doors and linoleum. I passed the first office suite, empty. The second, locked. The third door, the one leading into Sycorax, was ajar. That door is never open. I told myself maybe someone forgot to lock it during the day shift. Maybe someone from maintenance. But there was no work order. I should have called it in. Instead, I pushed it open. The office looked exactly as I remembered. Old monitors on desks, stacks of server backups labeled with handwritten tags, and rows of empty cubicles. But the air felt wrong, still and charged like a room just after lightning. I stepped in. That's when the monitor flickered on. Just one. An old CRT glowing green. It displayed a single word, recording. I froze. No one was supposed to be here. I checked the visitor log. No entries. I tapped my radio and called dispatch. No response. Dead static. I tried my phone. No signal. I took a step forward. The monitor changed. It now showed a black and white feed. Surveillance footage. Grainy and crackling, the angle unfamiliar. I leaned closer. The footage showed a hallway. This hallway, from the perspective of where I was standing. On the screen, a figure appeared. It looked like me, standing perfectly still, facing the screen. Except I was moving. I turned and looked behind me. No one there. But on the monitor, the other me lifted a hand and waved slowly. I stumbled back. The monitor went black. The room was quiet again. I backed out of the office and returned to the lobby. Heart racing. I checked every camera feed. Nothing. All normal. Until 3:13 a.m. That's when the elevator started moving. I hadn't touched it. I watched on the lobby cam as it descended floor by floor from the 12th. Each floor chiming dully. 11, 10, 9. Nobody should have been up there. The elevator stopped at the third, waited a full minute, then continued to the lobby. I stood up, every instinct in me screaming to run, but I stayed. The doors opened. Nothing inside. Just an empty elevator car. Except, not quite. There were wet footprints on the floor, leading into the lobby. They stopped right at the security desk, where I was standing. I looked down. Nothing. But on the monitor, the infrared cam showed something else. A heat signature, standing next to me. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. And then it leaned in, just slightly toward the camera. Static. Everything went dark. They found me the next morning, unconscious in the stairwell. No signs of forced entry, nothing on the footage. Every camera had been wiped clean from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. I quit the next day, but sometimes when I walk past that building at night, I see a flicker on the third floor, a green light and a silhouette facing the window, watching, waiting. And I wonder, was I watching something that night, or was it watching me? Anne didn't mind working nights. It was quiet, paid well, and she could spend most of her shift reading or listening to music. Her job was to monitor a small 24-hour self-storage facility on the edge of town. The office sat in a glass cube at the front of the property with a view of every storage unit row through black and white monitors. Most nights were so uneventful, it felt like the world forgot this place existed. Until Tuesday, it was just past 1 a.m. when the first thing went wrong. She was sipping lukewarm tea, flipping through an old paperback, when she noticed movement on the security feed. Camera 6, row D. A unit door was open, halfway up. The flickering lights cast shadows long and crooked. She squinted. No one had checked in. She knew for a fact that Unit D12 was registered to a woman who hadn't visited in weeks. Anne reached for the intercom mic. "Storage customer in row D, if you're on the property, please check in at the front desk." Nothing. The door on the feed rolled down slowly. Click. She stared for a full minute, waiting, then scanned back the recording. Nothing showed opening the door. No car, no person, just open, then closed. Anne stood and locked the front door, even though she was supposed to keep it open overnight. The uneasy feeling hadn't left by 2:17 a.m. when the motion alert chimed again. Camera 9 this time, Unit F3. On the feed, she could see someone standing there, not moving, just out of the camera's center, so the body was a blur. Not quite caught in the lens. No defining features. She tried the intercom again, voice shaking slightly. "Security speaking. Identify yourself, or I will contact law enforcement." The figure turned slightly, just enough for her to catch the curve of a smile. Wide. Too wide. Then the feed went black. Every monitor gone. All at once. She jumped up, heart thudding, trying to reset the feed. Then, thud, from outside. She turned slowly toward the glass. Nothing. Thud. Again. She moved toward the back door of the office and clicked the outside floodlight. The alley between the office and storage units lit up like a stage. It was empty, except, written in thick black marker across the back of the glass door, "I see you, Anne." She staggered back, grabbing her phone. It had no service, just the spinning, searching symbol. That's when she heard the dragging sound, like something heavy being scraped across pavement. Scratchy! She turned and saw it on the monitor. Camera 4 had come back online. A new feed. Someone was dragging a crowbar across the row of units. Metal against metal. Walking slowly, not running, taking their time. Anne slammed the office door shut and locked the deadbolt. She dialed 911 again and again. Still no service. She yanked open the desk drawer and pulled out the emergency radio. As she fumbled to tune it, the motion sensor above the front door beeped. Someone was at the glass. She didn't look. She ran. Out the back, through the alley, down the long corridor of storage units that all looked the same. She ran until her legs burned, her breath caught, and her vision blurred. Behind her, footsteps. Fast. Heavy. Someone was chasing her. She turned a corner and ducked behind a unit, pressing her body against the cold metal wall. The footsteps grew louder. Closer. A shadow passed in front of her. Pausing. Listening. She held her breath. The figure moved on. She sprinted again, doubling back toward the front office. Finally, her phone buzzed. One bar. She hit 911 and screamed her location. Then she locked herself inside the bathroom of the office and waited. The police arrived 12 minutes later. 12 long minutes of dead silence. When they found her, she was curled up against the wall, still holding the phone. Officers swept the facility. No signs of forced entry, no one on the cameras. All footage past 1 a.m. Gone. Erased. But the marker on the door was real, And behind the office, they found something worse. Etched into the brick wall, dug deep with what looked like a nail or a key. "See you tomorrow, Anne."